so blessed to still have my health and still have the movement in my body and to be able to share this positive energy with. Hello, hello, hello. MoTheGoddess here. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome in. Check out some of my other videos, see if there's something that resonates with you, and if so, make sure you like, comment, share, and if you're going to do all that, you may as well subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. But when you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell so that you are aware when I upload more amazing videos such as this. So let's just have some chit chat. I decided to do a little chit chat, be as comfortable as I can in this particular environment on this particular subject because it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable for me as well as many of you out there who may have experienced it. And what is that it I'm talking about? I'm talking about the mother wound. Have you experienced the mother wound? Do you know anything about the mother wound? To me, I think that the mother wound, mama trauma, is even as bad, if not worse, than daddy issues. We so easily talk about our daddy issues. I mean, it's not even a thing for people to say that they have daddy issues, for a man to point out that his wife, his daughter, his girlfriend has daddy issues, for a woman to say that she has daddy issues. That's a common conversation, right? But nobody ever really talks about that mama trauma. Nobody ever talks about that mother wound, because guess what? This is the one subject, this is the one topic that the mamas are protected. I think I never really talked about my mother wound so much because I felt, and this is just me personally, I felt like if I expose my truth about the relationship between my mother and I, people are not going to look at her. They're going to look at me and they're going to say, well, what's wrong with you that your mama don't love you? What's wrong with you? And for many years, that was the question that I asked myself. What is wrong with me? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say to you that my mama didn't love me. We had the best clothes. We lived in some of the best neighborhoods. We ate at some of the best restaurants. We went out to some of the best shows. We did. My mother kept me and my brother, I only have one sibling, but we were prim and proper. We talked prim and proper. We dressed prim and proper around her prim and proper friends. Now, I'm not mocking my mother, but I am simply speaking my truth. From the outside looking in, it always looks just so, right? But there was always something that I would see in my cousins, I would see in my friends. I would notice other people's relationships with their moms, and I would say, why don't I have that same relationship? Why doesn't my mother hug me? Why doesn't my mother kiss me? Why doesn't my mother stand up for me in the ways that these parents are standing up for their children? What is wrong with me? It must be something wrong with me Because if your mama don't love you, then something gotta be wrong with you. You gotta be trash. You gotta be trash if your mama don't love you. And I carried that with me. So I was inspired to speak about this mama trauma. Let me get comfortable, girl. I'm saying girl, but I know a lot of men out there have experienced mama trauma as well, and who have a mother wound as well. I've dated some of them, okay? So I definitely know. But y'all really don't talk about that. Y'all really don't talk about that when it comes to the mama. Y'all will speak about y'all daddies too. But y'all really won't talk about the damage that your mama did to you. Because we are taught to keep it hush hush, especially in the Black community. We are taught to sweep it under the rug. And unfortunately, because we are taught to keep it hush hush, and because we are taught to sweep it under the rug, we never get the healing that is required for us to move over or graduate into adulthood healthy and ready for the world. We just carry that trauma and that drama and that wound still gaping open and spilling out on everybody else throughout our lives until we come to a point where we decide to heal. Another thing in the Black community, seeking help, mental health, therapy, all taboo. We don't talk about that. You better pray it away. You better get down on your knees and pray it away. Girl, you tripping. You still talking about that? You still thinking about that? You know, we don't have our issues and our trauma validated. It's played small or not even acknowledged at all. I'm telling you what I know. I don't know about you, but I'm telling you from my point of view what I know and what I have experienced. I remember when I was younger, I used to talk about it all the time. Because I've always been expressive, y'all. I have always shared my feelings. I am one of those people who cannot hide how she feels. And I don't even try to. If I'm upset, you're going to know it. If I'm sick, you're going to know it. If I'm sad, you're going to know it. If I'm happy, you're going to know it. I'm a very expressive, self-aware individual. Always have been. As long as I can remember, I've always been very self-aware because I've had to be. All I had was myself. I had to be. So, I remember the very first time, the very first wound that I felt from my mother. I think I might have been about 5 years old. And my brother's dad, which was the only dad that I knew, if you want to call him that, he was the only dad that I knew because he actually got with my mom when she was pregnant with me. And I remember the moment my brother was born, that is when I started to feel different. I always knew that that man was not my real father. I always knew that. I don't know how I knew. Nobody ever talked about it. Nobody ever called him stepdad. I always called him daddy, you know. From the very first moment, I always knew that he wasn't my father. And when my brother was born, trust me, he went out of his way to make sure I knew that I was not his biological child, okay? First mother wound. I remember My brother was about 3. It was a lot going on when I was 5 years old. My brother and I are 3 years apart. And my brother was born, of course, like I said, 3 years after me. But I remember when I was 5 years old, my brother's dad, he's in my book. I wrote about it, you guys. I wrote about it. And let me tell you, this mama trauma kept me for many years not being able to tell my story. Because if I expose my truth, then it's going to expose all the people that caused me the pain, the hurt, and the wound to begin with. And of course, one of the things I always heard growing up is, oh, you only get one mama. But that's your mama though. But that's your mama though. So it always invalidated the trauma that I experienced from my mama though, because everybody played it small. That's your mama though. So because that's your mama, you're supposed to be treated like that. You're supposed to allow that treatment. You're supposed to accept it, and you're not supposed to talk about it because you only get one mama. That's what I was told. So I was ashamed. I was ashamed in many ways. But I remember that first traumatic experience when my stepfather whooped me for something that my brother did. I always got whoopings for something my brother did. Like everybody was always mad at me. I don't understand why. My brother did something and his dad beat the hell out of me to the point where I ran into the living room table. Remember in the 70s where they used to have them, all the furniture was hard in the 70s. But I remember we had this table and it had gold like trimming. It was like a Victorian style table. It was glass on the top. And if you look inside, it had like velvet, like red velvet in the inside. It was beautiful. I would love to have that to this day. But I ran into that corner of the table and it busted my leg open. It cut my leg open. I still got the scar. Let me let y'all see. No, y'all ain't gonna be able to see. I still got the scar. I want you to see since I got my leg up. I might as well just go and let you see. But it cut my leg open to the white meat. 5-year-old, okay? Gushing blood everywhere. I never forget that day. I could see the white hanging out of my leg at 5 years old. And I remember I could not wait for my mama to get off work so I could tell her what had happened. I could not wait. And she came in, of course, bloody towels everywhere, because not only did he whoop me to the point where I ran into the table and I'm screaming and I'm crying, he sent me in the room and told me to shut up as I bled. So I bled out until my mama came from work, blood everywhere. So she comes in, surprised, hysterical, like, what happened? And I told her what happened. And I told her, I said, Mama, he don't like me. He beats me when you're not here. And she was like, no, he does love you. He does love you. He's just on medication right now. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he stayed at home because he was having kidney issues. He had kidney failure going on. We spent a lot of time in the hospital because he was always in the hospital getting transplants or getting dialysis or something. And she blamed it on that. He's on medication and he does love you. So although I'm telling you that this man is putting hands on me for no reason, you didn't save me. That was my first wound at 5 years old. literally and figuratively. I needed somebody to stand up for me. I needed somebody to advocate for me. I needed somebody to be there for me. And you didn't save me. So at 5 years old, although I'm getting beat for no reason, it taught me to keep quiet. It taught me that I deserved that type of treatment. For whatever reason, I deserved that type of treatment, and nobody was going to come to my rescue, so I might as well just chalk it up and be quiet. And that's how I continued on in my formative years, until I was 11 years old and she got with my other stepfather. And, well, let me read something to you. I'm working on a second book. And I'm toying with the idea of putting this particular story in the book. So I'm going to share it with you. And you guys let me know if it's something that I should put in my book or if I should keep it. See, because I want my book to be a self-help book, and I don't want it to be morbid. I don't want it to be sad. I don't want it to be, draining people's spirit. I just want to share my experience in the hope that it will empower someone else, that it will uplift someone else, that it will remind someone that they are not in this alone and that they are worthy and they are loved. But anyway, I'm going to read this to you. Hopefully you stick around long enough to hear it. But it goes like this. Even now, as I summons the courage to expose the concealed truths of my past, a sliver of discomfort courses me. This tale, hidden beneath the rug of secrecy for far too long, emerges into the light for one reason alone. It's necessary. It's necessary. It's necessary for you to be able to tell your story. It's necessary for you to be able to talk about it. It's necessary for you to get it out, okay? Necessary because there are countless others, men and women alike, who bear their own burdens of secrecy and unresolved pain. Together, we must confront the uncomfortable. For it is in the discomfort that the healing can begin. Sex. Let's talk about it. A word that carries an enigmatic weight, surrounded by societal taboos and unspoken rules. For me, it has always been an unsettling subject, a labyrinth of unease waiting to be exposed. One second, y'all. Unlike most, I never received the customary birds and bees talk in traditional form. Instead, as an innocent 11-year-old girl, I found myself thrown into the bewildering conversation with my mother, blindsided by a question that had been planted within me. It was an ordinary afternoon, the din a backdrop of our unexpected dialogue. With trepidation, I summons the courage to ask, "Mama, what's an orgasm?" Her face betrayed a mix of confusion and concern, grappling to understand why I would pose such a query out of the blue. The origin of my question traced back to the dark corners of my existence. The words whispered by my stepfather in the late hours of the night. On countless occasions, he knelt by my bedside, casting an eerie silhouette upon the walls while his hands delve beneath the fabric of my innocence. In hushed tones, he uttered the words, "I want to make you have an orgasm." Perhaps you wonder why he crept into my room, his knees pressed against the floor. The truth is, it was a haunting routine that unfolded several times a week. Bedtime became a vulnerable dance where the slow creak of my bedroom door and the ominous figure of his presence sent shiver down my spine. Can you imagine? Can you imagine me being in my bedroom under the covers, 11-year-old, just anticipating this man coming into my room and hearing that door open? I didn't even sleep well most of the time, you guys. I didn't even sleep well because I knew that he would be coming into my room, crawling on the ground like a freaking creep. I learned the art of pretending to sleep, a skill honed early in my childhood. I kept one eye open, a sentinel, a sentinel against the encroaching darkness as he reached under the covers. The scent of his cigarette-laden breath and the lingering aroma of coffee mingling with my fear, etching themselves into my memory. In my desperation for answers, I confided in my mother, sharing the word that had tainted my innocence. But her response was one of silence, a void that amplified my confusion and intensified my sense of wrongness. It was as if the word itself was forbidden, something I should neither know nor ask. Left to my own devices, I sought solace in the knowledge of our household, of our house within the Britannica encyclopedias. Do you remember the Britannica encyclopedias? When my grandmother passed away, she left hers to me, but we had some newer ones. The newer ones, the big ones, we had those in our house. And I went in search of the word myself that lined our living room shelves. With trembling hands, I opened their age pages, desperately searching for understanding. And there, nestled in the letter O, I stumbled upon a definition of a definition that shattered my naivety forever. It stated, the point during sexual activity when sexual pleasure is strongest. In that moment, as those words seeped into my soul, my innocence fractured irreparably. I came to realize that I was subjected to a torment I couldn't fully comprehend, a violation that brought me no pleasure. Armed with newfound knowledge and hopeful that my mother's awareness would put an end to this nightmare, I assumed it would cease. But alas, hope proved elusive, and the reality persisted. The torment did not waver. It persisted unabated. Do you feel me? Do you feel me? Over the, 2021, I had a client, and my client also suffered a mother wound. Hers was that of something completely different. Her mother abandoned her. And she was still dealing with some of that trauma as well. So this was one of my clients, and we had one of our sessions, and she mentioned to me that she had been watching this YouTube channel called Atlanta Street Interviews. And she turned me on to this specific video where another young black girl was suffering from a mother wound, and she was sharing her experience on this YouTube channel. And I checked out the video, and I went down the rabbit hole of all the videos. And it is this interviewer who goes around Atlanta, and he's interviewing a lot of homeless people, men and women. And it seems like we all have the same story. So many of us in the black community have these wounds that we have kept secret, that we have kept hidden. The stories that we don't tell, the stories that shape our lives. And I give thanks because the only difference between those people who are homeless dealing with the mother wound and me is the grace of God, right? I think about often how I could have been homeless, I could have been on drugs, I could have been a prostitute, I could have been an abuser myself. And let me be clear. Because I had an unhealed mother wound for so many years, that open wound spilled over onto my children as well. It did. I can't lie to you. No, I didn't sexually abuse them, but I abused them with my words. I abused them with my hurt, with my anger that I carried for so many years. I abused them under the guise of trying to protect them. I'm raising these two black boys, and they're not going to be like them. They're not going to do this. They're not going to be criminals. They're not going to do this. And they need to fear me. So, although I love my boys with all my heart, I did and said some things to my boys that I'm not proud of. There were many times where I would physically, trying to make them tougher, raise up on them. Instead of, disciplining them and speaking to them, I would punch them in the chest. Or, just say something very hurtful. And then when they cried, I would say, you bet not cry. You a boy. Boys ain't supposed to cry. That's inflicting pain on top of pain. I caused mama trauma as well to my young black boys, my young black kings. So many of us, mothers that are unhealed, we carry those open wounds into our relationships with other family members, with our own children, and we just spill out on to people who never even cut us, right? Because we are unhealed, because we are angry, because we have these secrets that are suppressed and lie dormant within us that we were told not to tell, that were not validated within us. We didn't get the acknowledgement. We didn't get the release that we needed. So the release came by causing the same drama, trauma, and spilling and spewing that toxicity onto our other relationships. Now, since my healing journey, there used to be a time, you guys, I couldn't even talk about this without crying. I couldn't even tell you, the things that happened to me without crying. And it was when I was younger, when people were telling me, you only get one mama, but that's your mama though. But that's your mama though. But that's your mama though. I heard that so much. Then I thought, well, I must be out of line for talking about what my mama done did to hurt me. I must be a piece of crap. So it just perpetuates over and over and over. But since my healing, what I wanted to say, I went to my sons and I said, I am sorry. I am so sorry if I caused you any pain that you are carrying along with you in your life right now. I am sorry. The sorry that I needed to hear that I've never heard, that I probably never will hear. When I started to understand for myself what I needed from my mama, who was never able and probably never will be able to give that to me, I had to give it to myself. And when I began to understand, to nurture, to speak to love, to give that attention to that little girl within myself, then I was able to give that to my sons. I was able to acknowledge that. And it's not like I did anything to them intentionally. And I'm not even going to say that my mother did anything to me intentionally. I'm not going to say that. I don't know what she's ever gone through that she's never talked about, because it goes on for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries. And I think that's why it's important for me to talk about it now. When I see these Atlanta Street interviews and I see the only difference in that, your face, baby, is you out on the street, but we got the same story. We dealing with the same pain. We dealing with the same mama trauma, that mother wound. And sometimes things still come up for me. That little girl still rises up. Am I good enough? What's wrong with me? How come nobody don't love me? How come nobody supports me? She still come up. And I have to remember where it all stems from. If you don't heal your mother wound, it's going to play out on your job. It's going to play out in your relationships. It's going to play out in your finances. It's going to play out in your body. It's going to play out in your children's body, in your children's finances, on your children's job. It's just an ever-going thing that we, especially in the Black community, need to begin to speak. We need to begin to tell our stories, because there's power in that. There is power in the healing. There is power in giving yourself permission to say, this happened to me. They did it. I didn't tell for the longest time because I didn't want nobody to be upset with me. If I tell my story, then I got to tell their story. If I tell my story, then it's going to be people out there to say, but that's your mama, though. You only get one mama. And how I began to be at ease with the you only get one mama, how that stopped affecting me. I was talking to someone about that, and I was saying, so many years I heard the same thing, but that's your mama, though. You only get one mama. Why are you talking about your mama? That lady that I was speaking to said, but she only got one daughter. But that's your daughter, though. What about you? What about you? What about you begin to honor yourself before you honor someone who continuously causes you pain? Because I'm telling you about the things that happened as a young girl for me. But let me tell you something. That relationship between my mother and I never got any better. It never got any better because I would sit with my mama I would go visit my mama. I try to do things to win my mama's love all my life. And she played on that. That was her. She loves that. She loves me to pine and whine and resort back to that 12-year-old girl. I remember I had took one of my friends. No, I didn't even take him around her. My mama came to my house and I had company. And she treated my company, which she always does. She always treats my friends and my men and everybody so bad. She's just not a very nice lady. She's not a very nice lady. Let me just be clear with that, okay? When it comes to me. But she came to my house and I had company and she treated my friend so bad. And he, he sat there and respectfully, he didn't say anything back to my mother. He just continued to deal with my children, playing with my sons at the time. And I remember when she left, he said to me, "You are so different when your mama is around." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're afraid of her. You turn into a 12-year-old little girl." And I started to think about that. Of course, I got defensive. No, I don't. But I started to think about it, and I started to step outside myself every time I visited with my mother, every time I was in my mother's presence, and I would watch my behavior, and I always resorted back to that little girl. Always. Not in a good way, but in a timid way, in a, oh, let me not express myself type of way. Oh, let me tiptoe around her feelings type of way. Oh, let me play small type of way. Let me not express anything that might upset her type of way. That little girl. I don't want to make my mama mad, little girl. And I think the last straw for me, you guys, and I had to do it for my own sake, was when I went no contact voluntarily with my mother. And it was after I moved here to Indonesia. Because it was like every time I talked to her, every time, I do all this healing work. I'd be doing the meditation. I'd be doing the prayer. I'd be doing the self-care. I'd be doing all the rituals for myself, feeling good. The moment I let her in, she chopping my ass up again, cutting me up again, opening those wounds again. So for my own benefit, I said, I can't keep doing this. It take me 3 to 5 business days to get right after I even have a conversation with her. That's not fair. It's not fair to me. Why do I keep subjecting myself to this mistreatment? Why? I have to honor me. I have to be able to function in this life. And I just made the decision, and I did a cord cutting ritual, my own. After I found myself, you guys, when I really decided, I remember sitting in this cafe here in Bali, and this lady was sitting at a table completely different from the table that I was sitting at. She's sitting in front of me, and I'm ordering my food, and I'm talking to the wait staff in the cafe, and she turns around and she goes, "Oh, you're from the USA as well, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I noticed by your accent, I'm from California, da da da." So we're talking back and forth. Just met this lady. We having a whole conversation, right? Talking about the United States and how she ended up in Bali and how I ended up in Bali. Next thing you know, she said, "Can I just pull up a chair at your table?" And I said, "Sure." So she's sitting there. Next thing I know, we didn't talk for 3 hours, me and this lady. Next thing I know, I'm just spilling out everything and I'm crying at the table with this woman. We're sharing our mother wounds and I'm bawling with a complete stranger. I'm crying my eyes out, telling her about my mama trauma and how I wanted to not deal with my mother anymore, but it hurts because people keep saying you only get one mama. People keep saying, girl, and even her, girl, you still thinking about that? I tried to heal with her. I tried to talk to her. I needed to be the big girl. I needed to not be that 12-year-old anymore and to respectfully tell her all the pain that she has caused me over the years without disrespecting her. Girl, you still thinking about that? You need to get over that. Or any excuse, never an apology. And this lady, complete stranger, she was like, well, maybe you need to do a cord cutting ceremony. And I did my research on cord cutting and how, everybody has their own way, what it takes, what you should do. One thing about Bali, you guys, many of you ask me, why Bali? Why do you live in Bali? What's so nice about Bali? Bali, Mama Bali is what we call her. It has a nurturing spirit. It is a female energy here. And Mama Bali, anybody that she pulls to this country, because she pulled me here. I ain't know nothing about being here. I didn't even know all the healing. I wouldn't have never had the courage to cut the cord with my mother. I would have never had the courage to go non-contact with my mother unless I came to Bali. Bali starts to pull things out. You need this healed. Okay, put that over there. We got that. Okay, now let's work on that. I kid you not, there is a magic in this country. There is a magic, a healing magic, a feminine energy that will hold a mirror up to you and you'll start seeing some shit. I knew then. I was like, okay, that's why you had me come over here. And that's why I'm over here. I believe that most of my healing is done, but I would have never had the courage to go non-contact with my mother had I not moved to this country. Had I not been, this stuff, had it not come up, had I not become hypersensitive to the pain and, all this mama trauma. Every time I talk to my mama, I got to dust myself off. I'm telling you, it take me 3 to 5 business days to get my mind right again, to function again. And I couldn't do it anymore. And I cut the cord. And I did a big grieving. I grieved. I cried. And it felt like I was grieving over the loss of my mother, and she is still living. That's heavy. It's one thing when your mama has passed away. That's the end. It's over. Can't do anything about it. But it's another thing when you grieve the loss of your mother that is still living. But before I cut that cord, I talked to her one last time. I don't know what I was seeking in that last conversation, but it was something in me, like spirit was saying, no, you got to talk to her. Because I had went silent before I went no contact. I just went silent. I was like, I got to get my mind right. And when I went silent, spirit was like, no, there's still some more that you have to talk to her about. You have to discuss. I've only shared with you guys just a minuscule portion of the dynamic between her and I. And it took me a long time to pick up the phone and call her, and I called her. And she's very pretentious type of person. She's very, very pretentious. Ooh, child. Very pretentious. She picked up the phone. And I said, I opened the conversation, hey, mama, 12-year-old girl. Hey, mama, I just wanted to call you because there are some things that I really want to discuss with you. And I don't want to blame you for anything. I said, but a part of my healing is to be able to discuss this with you right now while I can, while I have the opportunity. And I hope you are okay in granting me the time to do it. Surprisingly, she didn't get defensive. Because normally she's like, rah, She sat there and I talked and she let me talk. Seemed like she was listening. I got it all out. And at the end, I thought, she's 70 years old. This time, my mama gonna be my mama. She gonna give me what I need. She's going to apologize. And at the end of all of that, letting that out, giving it to her free, nonstop. She didn't cut me off. She just listened. She made excuses. Still no apology. It was everybody else's fault. It wasn't hers. But at least she didn't say, you still thinking about that? She let me talk. And she made excuses. And when she made the excuses, I just said, okay. At that point, I had gotten it all out. And at that point, I knew that I could never change her. I knew that she would never change. There was nothing I could do. She's going to be who she is. She is set in her ways. Maybe one day she'll come to the conclusion that she should or she can give me an apology. Maybe, maybe not. But if she doesn't, I have done all that I can do. I have said it all. I have gotten it out. She's aware. And now I need to take care of me. October 3rd, I will be 54 years old. 54 years old. And up until 2 years ago, I was still needing my mama to give me something. Until I realized there's nothing that she can give me. I have to give it to myself. I owe it to myself. I owe it to myself to take care of me, to love me, to honor me. I owe it to myself to be good so that I can be good for my grandchildren, so that I can teach them, so I can love them, so that I can be good for my children. And the cold part about it, my mother has 2 grandsons, my sons, that she don't even know. Didn't care to know. Didn't care to be a grandmother. My youngest son just had his first baby. She don't know. And she don't care. Because my oldest son has 5 babies that she's never been a part of their life. My kids don't know her as their grandmother. So that hurt the most. That hurt the most because it's one thing to treat me the way you treat me, but then it's not fair to them. It's not fair to them to be treated wrongly. So she would come around when she felt like it. And I think, oh, this time my mama's going to be my mama. And then she would disappear. Come around, disappear. And I said, you know what? I've been dealing with this. I got the hang of it. But my boys don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. And unfortunately, because of all of that stuff and all of that trauma and all of that wound that was open and gaping, I sought out relationships with men that were also not good. because I'm looking for somebody to heal me. I'm looking for somebody to make me feel worthy. I'm looking for somebody to love me. I am looking for something in someone else. And I always wound up in a jacked up situation. Abusive relationships, not one, but two. Yeah, two. And relationships that just were not beneficial to me. I allowed people to walk over me. I allowed people to make me feel like I wasn't worthy, because if your mama don't love you, who gonna love you? Must be something wrong with you. But anyway, we've gone long. I wanted to share that with you because I think Spirit has been dealing with me in that way. Like, girl, we didn't go through all of this. I didn't bring you through all of this to continue to keep it in secret, to continue to suppress it, to continue to not share it. You went through all of this to empower others. You went through all of this to humanize yourself so others can relate. Share your story. Talk about it. Because when you heal, you give others permission to heal. Again, I wrote about this in Permission to Power. It took me a long time, y'all, and there's more. There's so much more. It took me a long time to feel free enough to release this story, to actually write it down, to actually publish it, because I was worried about making other people mad. My story is my story, and I get to tell it. I am worthy of telling it. I am worthy of healing from it. I am worthy of overcoming it. I am worthy, period. And so are you. So if you'd like to share, if you can relate, if you want to hear more of these stories, I want to see your comments below. But in the meantime, and in between time, until the next time, you be fit, be fierce, be fabulous.